Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing if dumper texts reply like this. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing if dumper texts reply like this. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely be looking for a texting strategy. In today's podcast, I'll be giving 3 pieces of advice regarding how to respond if your ex texts you. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is keep on point. So point number 1 is regarding necessary contact from your ex-dumper. So what do I mean by necessary contact? Well, let me give you a few examples. Let's just say your dumper texts you and says, hey, I think I left my work laptop at your house. When can I come and pick this up? Now, in this first example, you can clearly see that this is necessary contact. It is their work laptop. They need it. They are not texting you for any other reason other than the fact that they need their laptop for work. And they are asking, when can they come and collect it? Okay, so that is an example of necessary contact. Let's give another example. Let's say perhaps you receive a text from your dumper that says, hey, when are you going to come and pick the kids up? So in this instance, you have children together. Your ex-dumper is asking you, when are you going to pick the kids up? So this will be clearly about childcare. It's necessary contact. It's nothing else. You can't try to draw any other conclusion other than they had to find out when you're going to come and collect your children, when you're going to come and see your kids. This is necessary. This is important, but you understand the difference, okay? Let's give one more example of necessary contact. And let's say your ex-dumper texts you and says, hey, a letter has come to my house. It's addressed to you. It looks like it's a bill. You know, when are you going to come and collect this letter? You know, if you need to collect mail, which is very, very important for you, maybe it's a bill, maybe it's some type of tax return. You know what I'm trying to say. This is very important. So in that example, your ex-dumper is asking you, when are you going to come and collect this important letter? It's not mine, it's yours. I know it's serious. I know you need it. Okay, so there you see 3 examples of necessary contact. But I'm saying that if you receive necessary contact from your ex-dumper, you need to respond by keeping things on point. So as we've been going through these, I've been reiterating the fact that this is necessary. There is no other reason that you're receiving this other than the clear situation that is being described. So keep your response on point. I would always say be polite, be respectful, be positive in your response. So saying something such as, hi, thanks for letting me know. I'll come and collect this on Thursday if that's okay. Or maybe if it's when your ex-dumper is asking to collect their work laptop, you might be saying to them, well, you know, I'm available on Saturday, I'm at home then. Would you like to come and collect it then? You know, respond in a positive way. Don't be argumentative. Don't be angry. Certainly don't ignore this because it's necessary. It's important. I would also say I'd be very, very careful about trying to do anything such as flirting, trying to take this in a different direction. Like point number 1 is saying, keep things on point. If it's necessary contact, respond to what is being asked. Don't try and go in a different direction. This is not going to help you in most instances because they're not reaching out for you for any other reason. Now, I'm not saying that you can't ask a question back. You know, you've got to use your common sense, get the vibe of the text. You may add on a simplistic, I hope things are well with you. You know, maybe not actually a question, but a statement where you are just showing that you care for their well-being. But I would be very careful of doing anything really more than that or even that at all. In most instances, if you receive necessary contact, just keep things on point. Hi, thanks for letting me know. yada, yada, yada. Just explain if and when you can collect this, if and when they can collect that. You need to be really concentrating on the point, being polite, listening to what they say, and answer the question. If you want to try to get your ex back, this isn't necessarily the type of text you receive where you think you could grow something in this here and now moment, but it is a situation where you could be judged in the future. Maybe your ex doesn't want to reconnect right now, but maybe they would have done in a few months' time if you had been polite, okay? Let's just imagine, for instance, you don't respond. Your ex, the dumper, sends you a text, hey, my work laptop's at your house, when can I come and collect it? And you don't respond. Is that going to make them feel anything more for you? Or are they going to be very frustrated and think you're being bitter, angry, and they don't want anything more to do with you? Use your common sense. You need to be leaving the door open, be positive, be respectful, and keep things on point. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about if dumper texts reply like this. And point number 2 is positive and grow. Now, point number 2 is regarding unnecessary contact. So this is a big difference to point number 1. So, unnecessary contact could be your ex the dumper reaching out to you and saying, hey, I've just seen your favourite movies on TV tonight. Just thought I'd let you know. Okay, that isn't necessary. If you have dumped somebody, if you've ended a relationship, you're not going to reach out to them about their favourite movie. This is not something which is necessary. It's not important in the scheme of things. And somebody who reaches out like that is clearly thinking of you. Now, we don't know for certain at this stage if it's in a platonic sense or a missing you romantic sense, but they are thinking about you. This is unnecessary contact. Another example of unnecessary contact might be slightly similar to point number 1, but with a crucial difference. Let's say your ex the dumper reaches out to you and says, hey, I think you've left your socks at my house. When are you going to come and collect them? Now, you need to be thinking, what are they telling you? Okay, they're telling you your socks are at their house. Is that necessary? If you ended a relationship, if you wanted to go on a different path, would you really reach out to your dumpee and say, hey, your socks are at my house? No, it's very unlikely. That is not necessary. It's not a work laptop. It's not an important letter or a bill or something that you really need to have in your possession. It's a pair of socks, okay? So if you receive contact from your ex the dumper and maybe they say to you, hey, did I leave my socks at your house, or did you leave your socks at my house, or something which is very, very easily replaced, you've got to be realising this is unnecessary contact. It's not necessary in most instances to tell people about socks or any other example you can think of regarding you and your ex. If it doesn't have a monetary value, if it doesn't have a sentimental value, if it doesn't have a responsibility value, then it's unnecessary contact. If you receive unnecessary contact from your ex the dumper, this is your cue to try and grow the conversation. Again, be positive. Answer what they ask. Don't call them out on it and say, hey, that's ridiculous. Why are you asking me this? Who cares? Don't say that. Respond, answer their question, be positive, but then you must ask a question. Okay, so in point number 1, I said use your common sense. Maybe you could ask a question, or maybe you could add a positive statement at the end. Well, point number 2 is you have to ask a question. If you receive unnecessary contact from your ex the dumper, your response should end with a question mark. Remember that. That means you will always remember that after you answer their question, you are then asking them a question. Your aim at this stage is to grow that conversation. They are thinking about you. They've reached out to you for no reason whatsoever, and you now have this chance to try and positively grow this conversation. Now, if you're confused about this, or if you want advice about how to navigate the somewhat tricky communication stage, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one. I become your coach and your teammate. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more details on my audio coaching service and how I can become your coach and your teammate. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about if dumper texts reply like this. And point number 3 is don't reply. So point number 1 and point number 2, I was saying categorically respond. If you don't respond to point number one, you're going to come across as negative, you're going to come across as awkward, you're closing the door on any future possibility of your ex-dumper wanting to reconnect, because that is not going to make them think that you are an open or attractive person. They're going to be feeling like, look, I reached out to you for an important reason, you've ignored me, you've responded badly, okay, that is not what I want in my life right now. In point number two, if you don't try and grow the unnecessary contact, then you're wasting your opportunity. I can't say definitively that you'll get your ex back, but what I can say is if they've reached out to you for a reason which isn't important, they're thinking about you. You have a chance. The door is slightly open here. You need to take your opportunity. But point number three, I'm saying don't reply. But why shouldn't you reply? Well, I would say point number three is don't reply if your ex is abusive. So what do I mean by this? Well, there are two main examples. Example number one is if your ex-dumper was abusive to you within the relationship. Sometimes people get dumped and don't realise at the time that their ex-dumper was actually the abusive person. And they've actually managed to get out of a very bad situation, even though the fact that they've been dumped might make the dumpee initially feel really, really bad and really, really like they want to get their ex back. You need to realise as a dumpee, if your ex-dumper was abusive to you within the relationship, you've now had the lucky escape that you needed. It's a lucky escape because perhaps you couldn't see the abuse happening towards you. It can be very, very difficult when you're being manipulated, when coercive control is involved, for instance. But if you find yourself single and your ex-dumper was abusive, as soon as you start to realise the gravity of what you was in and now you are out, if your ex-dumper reaches out to you now, I would say don't reply. Because unless they've gone through professional help, things are unlikely to have changed. You do not want to be in an abusive relationship. It is not healthy in any way, shape or form. You are not their doctor. It is not down to you to quote unquote try and fix them. Okay? And likely still, if they're not getting professional help, it will probably be impossible for you to do so anyway. If your ex-dumper treated you terribly, they end the relationship, and then they reach out to you, I would say don't reply. Don't reply because you can and will find somebody better. The second example I have for point number three about when not to reply is if your ex-dumper sends you an abusive text. Okay, so again, it's about being abusive, but this is where it is slightly different. Maybe in your relationship there was no abuse. Maybe your relationship, as far as you saw it, was perfect. But your ex-dumper has reached out to you in the days, weeks or months after your breakup and sent you a horrible, abusive text. Now, why they may have done this, of course, I could only speculate right now. But if they do this, I would suggest not responding. Getting into a back and forth argument with your ex isn't going to help anything. And your mental health is so important. Don't let anybody drag you down. Don't let anybody drag you into a situation where things get horrible via text or phone call, or especially even in person. So if you receive a text message which isn't nice, which is horrible, which is abusive, don't respond. If there was abuse in the relationship, if there is abuse in the message you receive, I would say as a dumpee, you shouldn't respond. And even if you think, I still want my ex back, I don't care what they did, I don't care what they say, you need to try and see the bigger picture. And I appreciate it's hard right now. You know, when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to see what people from the outside can see. Maybe your friends and family, maybe myself, if you're having audio coaching with me, maybe we're all saying, look, you're better off without this person, but you need to see it and believe it from your own perspective. But if and when you do, and eventually I'm sure you will realise that you can and will find somebody even better. Once your self-esteem starts to rise, once you gain your confidence again, you will find happiness again in a healthier relationship. So it's not always about responding. If there was abuse in any way, shape or form, I don't suggest you reply to your ex. But if everything else seemed perfect, if you receive necessary contact or unnecessary contact, responding is the way to go. And if you want advice, audio coaching could be what you feel could be right for you. My website, www.dateme.tips, if you would like support with me. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.